afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the second segment of the Suidoosterfees, Jake's Gerwel Foundation 21 Life Lessons at 21 book discussion. Thank you for joining us. It is such an honor and a privilege to have you with us. And thank you to my panelists and honored guests for agreeing and being so gracious with their time and being here today. I'm truly grateful. I am Thembalethu Seyisi, final year law student at Stellenboch University and the compiler of 21 life lessons at 21. On my left, we've got Susan Boyens, who's a media expert and contributed to the book. Her father at 21 kicked her out and thought she will come crawling back. As she says in the book, she never did, and the rest is history. We've got our beloved former public protector, Prof. Madonsela, who's the Law Trust Chair in Social Justice at Stellenbosch University. We've got the most awarded actress in the room, Miss Sandra Prinsloo, who's also had so many awards that I can't even count and don't even know where to start. But I think my favorite one is your doctorate from Stellenbosch University. And we've got Mrs. V. Klaas, who's been a great pillar of strength to me and to our family. A disclaimer, she's my sister, and she also contributed to the book.
We can maybe say Rochelle can't be here.
Yes. Unfortunately, as you might have seen in the posters, it was Rochelle was supposed to join us. She's sent her apologies. She can't be here with us today. So welcome, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Themba.
First question I want to know. Susan, where were you on your 21st birthday, and what did you do?
Themba, thank you very much for the opportunity. It's been my honor to be part of this book. And disclaimer, I was also the sub-editor, so if you do find any typos of mistakes, come to me. But it was just such a wonderful opportunity. And before I answer where I was, in September last year, I got a call and Thembalethu told me he wanted to do this book. And I thought it was a crazy venture, and here we are. He finished the book on his right before his birthday in December. So well done, Themba. I was a 21-year-old in a very dark year in South Africa's history. It was the height of the last throes of apartheid. It was 1988. And I was a student at the University of Pretoria. And my birthday was in August, but 2 or 3 months prior, my very patriarchal Afrikaanse pa, right-wing dad, decided he'd had enough of his liberal kids. And he threw my brother and myself out of the house and said he doesn't want to see us ever again. And what I thought would be sort of a tragedy, I guess, in my life, and would be, it was really hard, and we had a tough time. Obviously not as tough as any of the other people in the book who write about their hardships in youth, but it was a tough time. But in the end, it turned out to be a blessing in disguise, because my dad then absolved himself, and he basically set me free from the patriarchy and from the Afrikaanse Christelik Nasionale Onderwys en die ooms met die grys skoene. And from then onwards, I could believe as I wanted to and live my life as I wanted to. But anyway, so 2 or 3 months after my dad threw me out, I had my birthday. No one knew about it. No one remembered. It was a bit of a sad day, but it was also like our 27th birthday of the birth of South Africa. Sometimes things set you free. So in hindsight, I don't mind, like you, that I didn't have a birthday party at 21st, because it opened so many doors for me.
Sometimes things set us free. Prof. Madonsela, would you share with us where were you and what did you do on your 21st birthday?
Thank you. Firstly, congratulations, Themba, for such a fantastic initiative and bringing us together as such a diverse group of people. It's a privilege to be part of it. On my 21st birthday, I was a first-year law student. You doing your final year, because I had been a university dropout and came back home and taught And with my mother pestering me, I went back to university again. So I was doing first year. And on that day, I went back home and I was with my mom and my siblings. And we had a proper birthday with the 21st birthday cake. And the only thing that was missing was the key, because mom gave me money for the key and I chowed it. It's a long story.
Miss Sandra, where were you and what did you do?
Well, it was quite uneventful in a way, because I was already then working for the then Performing Arts Council of the Transvaal as an actress. So, being an actress, you perform at night, so you don't have a party when you have a birthday. We rarely have birthday parties or anything, except perhaps Christmas is the only day that we don't work. So, but still working with a packed company was wonderful, because it was like a family. We were a family of actors and directors and designers and everybody that contributed to what I think is the magic of theatre. And so, of course, afterwards we did have a bit of a bash, but we were pretty poor, so we didn't have very much. But it was memorable in that I spent it with that group of very special people, many of who've become legends in this country.
I want to come back to the pact part, but let's ask V, where was she and what did she do?
Okay, mic test. Is it on?
It's on.
Okay. Well, I had a glorious 21st birthday, unlike you did. I was a third-year student at the University of Cape Town, doing organizational psychology and industrial sociology. I was very, very excited throughout the year. My birthday is in November, so I had the whole year to plan my birthday. I wanted it to be in a restaurant, and my parents came through for me. So on that day, I flew down to PE, and we had reserved at a place, I can't remember the name. Themba, can you remind me the name of that place? It was on a boat, restaurant type of theme. Okay, we can't remember the name. Yes.
Can't recall.
So I had my mom's friends, close family friends, and I had my best friends from the university. We were a group of about 20 or more. So it was really beautiful. I had the 21st birthday of my life, not knowing that my mother would not be there the next year on my birthday. Basically.
Good one.
Right. Miss Sandra, you spoke about how you were so happy at the pact and you were with this family, but you ended up leaving them to go play at the Market Theatre where you met John Carney, and most of us in the room would know the whole story that you kissed the black men, you were the first white to kiss a black man. But what gave you courage throughout your life to do those kind of things, to resist and to stand for justice?
Themba, I think being an actor requires courage. So I think it's not something that's so very foreign to us. For me, it was also more than just making a political statement. It was also about doing the play in the correct way that it should be done in South Africa, in our country. How can we not re-look a play, re-look the social structure, re-look at the injustices and incorporate them in a classic play? Otherwise, you're just presenting a piece of theatre that doesn't really resonate with your society. And for me, that was of great importance. So I suppose all those things, in a way, prompted me to take the step and do it, and I never regretted it. And John and I are still very, very good friends, and it was nice kissing him.
You heard it here first. It was nice kissing him. Susan, let's come back to you. And you've told us that you didn't have a 21st birthday and you were kicked out. And in the book, you write about forgiving your parents. Tell us a little bit more about that. What does that mean for you, and what can it mean for young people and old people in the room?
Yes, Themba, it's interesting. In the book, there are contributions from obviously a wide variety of people. But one of the themes that you can see like a golden thread through many of the stories in the book would be forgiveness. I think Prof. Tuli, even you mentioned it as well, and Prof. Mamaketi Pakeng as well, the Vice Chancellor of UCT, in her story as well. I know ex-President Mandela said that if you want to poison your enemy, or if you drink poison and hope your enemy would die, you know, that's like if you would wish the worst upon someone else. I had to forgive my parents. It took a long time, but I think it set me free. And the wonderful thing is that they are both alive, my parents, and I have a good relationship with them. And they've changed too with the country. So I think forgiveness is something you do for yourself as well.
So forgiveness is something you do for yourself and not just for the other person. Prof. Madonsela, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I can relate to Susan that forgiveness is something that you do primarily for you and secondarily for the other person. But for me, my journey towards forgiveness only started in my 30s. At 21st, although I spoke about a great birthday, but I was still that rebellious young person. My relationship with my mom was a bit fractured. In my letter to my 16-year-old self, I speak about the challenges I had about where do I fit in the family between my sisters and myself, and just feeling awkward, feeling I didn't belong, and feeling inadequate. And of course, at that stage, blaming my mom for picking my older sister as opposed to me. But in my 30s, I was lucky to be always somebody who was seeking answers to why are we here in this world? Why are things the way they are? And why am I so unhappy? I was so unhappy in my early 30s. And the answer came through, initially, a book by Louis Hay, You Can Heal Your Life. And it helped me to understand that the answers you seek in the world lie in yourself. And your fractured relationship with the world comes from having a fractured relationship with yourself.
That is powerful. I was so immersed in the answer and so very grateful for your honesty. V, you told us that your mom passed on the following year, and you at UCT, and you write in the book about how that and your best friend passed on the following year, and you found out that you were pregnant, and you write about that story in the book. Can you just tell us a little bit more about that, and how did you cope with that?
So I had my 21st birthday party and life was at the peak. Everything was going well, academics were well, I was just enjoying. So the following year, it was in November, so the following year, came back to varsity to finish up my studies. And early into that year, we found out that our mother was diagnosed with diabetes. And then she became drastically ill, and within a short space of time, she was in and out of doctors, and it was just being unresolved. So that had an impact on me psychologically, and without me realizing it at the time that I was affected, and it was affecting my studies and my focus. I kept going. I remember in October, I got a call from home saying mom is at hospital, and I quickly organized a bus ticket. I drove down to PE, and my mom was in coma for, I think it was a week or 2 weeks. And I saw her lying in that bed and unresponsive. So I was there for that time, but luckily she did come out of coma. She looked great. She was ready to come home. We took her home after some few days, and the day when I left home was in November the 6th. So I left her, Mom, you good? So this is how you're gonna be taking care of yourself. These are the medications. She was ready to leave again. So I came back to Cape Town because I had an exam the following day. Upon arriving in Cape Town, the 7th of November, the day before I turned 22, I got a call that morning that, well, your mom went to work, and we got a call from her workplace. She was a domestic worker, by the way, and she had fallen. Okay, fallen. Basically, she had passed away just that morning. So that shattered my world. It became very dark. And by the support of family and friends around me, we managed to get through that process. And I was never ready for the responsibility that comes with losing a parent. Because in our family, it's our big sister, myself, and then we've got a brother just before Themba. So I think Themba was 13. How old were you then?
13.
13. And he was about to go to high school the next year. So I had to quickly manage my academics. And since I couldn't write my test that day, I had to get a exception for that, and then write at a later stage. And then I had to think about my family. And I was faced with really difficult decisions that I had to make. So, yeah, I just gave my whole life to living for myself and basically for my family. And look at him. I basically, from that day onwards, from that time, had to make sure that he goes to school. And yeah, that's been my role. Did I answer you? Sorry, you go into those days and the feeling. So I'm not sure if I answered.
No, that is perfectly
Yeah.
fine. No,
Okay.
that answer is perfectly fine. And if people get the book, they will know how you
Yes.
how you conquered that period.
Yes.
Want to know about Sandra's story? What Sandra wrote in the book. about
Yes,
nature, yeah.
I'll get to Sandra's story just now, but today we're celebrating a very significant day in our country, and we were privileged to get former President Nelson Mandela's PA of 19 years, Zelda Lachransi, to contribute to the book. And I want Susan to read us a piece from that story, and I will take it from there.
Ah, thanks, okay. So Zelda Lachransi, whom we all know as the former private secretary to President Mandela, Themba asked her to write, and she wrote this story specially for 21 Life Lessons. She says, commit to being present. At 21, I was a young woman planning to get married and have 3 children. Boys, I was specific. I had very little ambition at the time, and my focus was on marrying the man of my dreams and starting a family as soon as possible. A career, politics, and whatever was happening around me in 1991 were of little interest to me and just noise. I was a conservative white Afrikaner that was comfortable with the status quo in South Africa. Apartheid served my privilege, and I voted no in the 1992 referendum about the abolishment of apartheid. I had little interaction with black people, and in any relationship with a black person, whether in our house, on the street, or in a shop, I was the master and the black person the servant. But they say life gives you not what you want, but what you need. Looking back at the 21-year-old Zelda, she's hardly recognizable. I wish I didn't shed all those tears when my engagement ended on the rocks. I wish I got involved in civil society, because one is powerful at that age, having so much energy. Most importantly, I wish I didn't believe everything around me, the propaganda that kept apartheid alive through our school curriculum, religion, news, TV. I wish I had just asked. To appreciate what one has or the experiences you undergo, it is necessary for you to be present. I was absent from the truth in my own country for my entire young life up to the age of 24. I only became present in my country, my life and environment when I discovered that I blindly supported a crime against humanity. I became present when I learned that I'm not superior to anyone, that my thinking could change, and that it is possible to love without romance unconditionally. Irrespective of what sets us apart, our common humanity of all races, religions, ideology is what binds us. As Madiba said, resentment is like drinking poison, hoping the enemy would die.
Right. Thank you so much, Susan, for that eloquent reading. Prof. Madonsela, Zelda speaks strongly and she admits her own unconscious biases and the propaganda that she had to go through in her 20s. On Freedom Day today, you tweeted that today is better than yesterday, but tomorrow could be better if we all do something. What were your thoughts? What are your thoughts on this prestigious day in respect of what Zelda has said?
Thank you, Themba. I think the first thing is to understand that people do the best they can based on the wiring in their heads and the information they have. And Zelda is a good example of a child living under apartheid and doing what she knew and thought was right then. And Oprah says, no, it's not Oprah, I think it's Maya Angelou who says, when we know better, we do better. In my own life, I've discovered that it's more than that. When we know better and think better, we do better. For example, we all know that we shouldn't eat certain foods, but we eat them. So when we know better and we think better, we do better. And 27 years into democracy, I'm one of those who fought against apartheid. And at some stage, I was prepared to use armed struggle in pursuit of what I thought was right. But I have learned that two wrongs don't make a right. Is that if we're gonna create the South Africa of our dreams, we need to fight from a place of forgiveness. We need to pursue justice as not just justice as just us, which is what I say in the thing. We need to begin to pursue justice as justice for all, but more importantly, we need to invite all to fight for justice, which makes what you have done show that you are at that level. You know, some of us, our consciousness grows over time, but some people's consciousness grows faster, because look at you at this stage, being able to bring people with diverse identities, but for one cause. And I don't know if you know that one of the reasons Themba wrote this book, apart from celebrating 21, Themba, you wrote this book out of selflessness, which was to raise student fees. And for me, I like that idea because we fought alongside people different from us. For us, it was not black versus white, it was us versus the system. But it was mostly for us protest. And you coming at a different stage in the history of South Africa, 27 years into democracy, where we now have to construct more than deconstruct. And that's where Zelda's words become important. And in a way, her theme is a little bit similar to the theme in my own writing. The essence of what I'm saying in my story is you need to heal yourself to heal the world. Because when you are not healed yourself, in the pursuit of justice, you can cause injustice. I mean, bullies bully people because they feel they've been bullied and they think people deserve to be bullied back. But then we get a vicious cycle of injustice and cruelty.
Susan, Prof. Madonsela has spoken about justice beyond just us, and she spoke about constructing other than deconstructing. But young people in South Africa at this day and age, you would know, you work in the media, lots of people my age feel displaced. They feel that the constitution that we talk about and these human rights are not working for them, and they take to social media to say certain things and do certain things. What would you say to young people who, after 27 years of democracy, whose parents have fought so hard for this country to be where it is, but they still haven't received their democracy dividend? What would you say to young people?
I would say to the young people, keep talking. My message is to my generation, and our generation is to listen. Because I had the privilege last year to be involved in a television program called Pelgrims for Kyknet, and it's about Afrikaans-speaking people's religion and spirituality. But it encompassed all the religions, and I was super worried when we did that people's reaction would be, we react whenever someone says something like young people speaking about justice that's been delayed. My readers and my viewers, the Afrikaans community, they react so quickly and become so angry and they're so defensive and they don't want to listen. So my message, if it's okay with you, would be to the older people and my generation of Afrikaans people to say, listen to these young kids. Don't just call them the hashtag generation and write them off and say they're angry and destructive. We need to, when we see what they write on social media, when they are angry and upset, we need to listen, not just to react, not just to be angry. In Afrikaans sê ek moenie net luister om te reageer, om te argumenteer of om te bekeer nie, maar luister om te leer, om te waardeer en te respekteer. When we listen to this young generation, we need to respect what they say, listen to them, and not just always react by being angry. But I agree with you, Themba, about the 27 years when you and I spoke last night. We spoke about the fact that South Africa is now part of the 27 Club. And I don't know if you guys know the 27 Club. It's these artists that passed away, like Jimi Hendrix and Amy Winehouse and Kurt Cobain. And our country, we've been through the teens, we've been through our teenage years, we're now in our 20s, and we've performed, but now we're sort of punch drunk and tired and corrupt and whatever, and we've now made it to 27. Now the question is, we can't just lie on the floor and become part of the 27 Club. We have to stand up, go into rehab, unlike what Amy wanted to do. We have to get our country into rehab and have a session with the family of South Africa where we actually talk with each other. Maybe we need a new truth and reconciliation. I know, Thuli, you have ideas around that, restitution and listening to each other again.
Well said.
Before I hand over to the floor for some questions, I'd like to get reflection from Mrs. Klaas, who's a young person in the panel. How do you feel 27 years into democracy? Is this the country that you want to live in? What are your thoughts?
Indeed, this is a country I want to live in. This day is quite very significant. As a young person, I am very grateful to the elders that have fought for us to be where we are today. And I am forever grateful and indebted to a better South Africa. Earlier today, on my way driving to here, I was listening to the President of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa. He said something along the lines of, he's calling upon South Africans to build South Africa brick by brick. By that, it means we all have an individual responsibility to contribute, like you are doing today, Themba. So without politicizing it, I believe that as a society, as individuals, we have a major role to play, and it is in our hands to take South Africa where we want to see it. I don't blame the elders. I just want us to work towards a better future.
And Ms. Sandra, we've recently experienced the Cape Town fires, and you write so beautifully in the book on how people should find meaning in nature. I'd like you to talk on that and your reflections on 27 years into democracy.
Yes, my feeling has always been that nature can teach us so much. And if we understand our place in nature, we understand our place in life. We tend to think of nature as something beyond us, apart from us, but it's not. We are nature. We are part of nature, and we have a very specific place in nature. Somebody said the other day, it was an ecologist, that if we could only understand that we're actually so low down on the food chain, we are actually just food for big cats. That's how we evolved. And I think if we keep a sort of perspective about how, not how unimportant, but we're certainly not that important, we would be able to celebrate more. And I would like to say that if one understands the beauty of life, of creation, we would be celebrating life. We would be celebrating each other. We would be so happy to be alive that maybe some of our problems would seem a little smaller, because it's all about perception, isn't it? We often perceive ourselves to be on the wrong end of the stick, getting bad things, but it's not necessarily true. It's only perception. Shift your perception and your life will change. And if we can all work towards something like that, to a greater goal, I think a lot of things will just sort themselves out along the way, apart from the hard work we would do. But life is not just about hard work or about trying to set things right. I think our job is to see what is there, celebrate it, embrace it, make it part of ourselves, and stop this separation. That's why we also racially separate, because we see each other as different. We are not different. We are people. We are part of a creation. That's where my thoughts lie.
Can I add to what Sandra said?
Yes.
And my contribution to the book is a list, and it says practice radical kindness. But number 19 says, Sandra, find the iconic pale blue dot image taken by the Voyager 1 spacecraft. Marvel at our beautiful, fragile, lonely planet. We are all the same, and from space, there's no race or borders.
Quite right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right, ladies and gentlemen and colleagues, I don't want to be too greedy. I've got more questions. It has always been my dream to sit down with my heroes and ask them questions. And I did have a little bit of that with the book, but I'm always happy to do more of that. But I'd like to give you a chance now to ask a question. It can be to all the panelists. You can pick a panelist, or you can ask me a question. I'm also happy to take one, but it's not about me today. There's a guy roaming around with a mic. Just put up your hand, and then I'll recognize you. There's a question.
I'd like to ask a question to Thuli. Susan said a beautiful thing, a stunning metaphor about South Africa need to get into rehab. Thuli, what is your reaction on that? What can I do? Please.
Thank you, Sarah. I agree with Susan that we do need to go into rehab. The language I've used before is that we are at an inflection point. We are at a point of reflection and resetting. And if you're thinking about the 27 Club, it's 27 years of democracy. It's the 27th of April, and Madiba was in jail for 27 years. So it's a great moment for resetting our agenda for change. And there's a whole lot of things we need to do, and we need to be honest with each other. And one thing is the fact that we want to be a non-racist country. We want to be a non-racial country, but our DNA is racist. I said to a friend of mine, very close friend of mine, that like everybody else, you are racist, and I'm also racially prejudiced. He nearly died. And it reminded me of a conversation I had with Dennis Davis when I was still at Cal's, and Bunny Pichana said he's racist, and he came to us as colleagues, and I said, I think I agree with Bunny Pichana, you are racist. You're not like Terry Blanche, but you're racist. And this is where I come from, is that we all bigoted. It might be race, it might be anti-gay, it might be anti-disability, but we don't wake up in the morning and want to be racist, sexist, xenophobic, etc. We are wired that way. Part of it comes from just humans tend to be homosocial. It's part of our survival. We're wired to survive, and therefore we gravitate towards the familiar. What is not familiar, we fear. But in South Africa, it becomes worse in that we are a country where, as just a few years ago, when my son was doing grade 4, he still had a book that was saying when the people were moving from the Cape into the inland, they were faced with many dangers. Among them, snakes, animals, and natives. So I went to Mr. Pretorius, who was the headmaster at the school, and said, where does my son fit in? With the dangerous things or with the people? And what was his answer? It's the school governing board that sets the program. There's nothing I can do about it. But how many kids then went through that? That wiring that still so dangers as natives, snakes, and wild animals and the people. I'm just picking one example of we shouldn't be ashamed of where we come from. We should be conscious of what it has done to us and work through it. And that's what Brene Brown says. Once you feel ashamed, then you're not going to deal with things. Judge Marshall, one of the best judges this country ever produced, who was the Chief Justice of Massachusetts, says the same thing. We all wired to be bigoted by society, but we just all have to be conscious of it. Why am I believing A? Why am I not believing B? Is it because I'm wired to feel more friendly towards B? But secondly, we need to be, if we're talking about this reset agenda, it works both ways. Those who are descendants of the victims of apartheid, we all need to forgive. Women who have been victims of domestic violence, we all need to forgive, because we can't heal our country, we can't heal the planet when we don't start by healing ourselves. And I've found that the most cruel of people sometimes are those who have been victims for their whole lives. Especially if you give a victim power, they're gonna use it not for the benefit of society, they're gonna use it to settle score. So I've spoken for a long way, but lastly, this reset agenda also needs for us to join this bandwagon, joining hands to advance social justice. People like Themba, which is Action for Inclusion. Why I'm saying we should do that is because people that me and you know are wronging us. They're destroying our democracy by stealing the resources that we need to equalize opportunities to move our country forward. When me and you and the judges hold them accountable, they hide behind racism. And then they get a little bit of support from people who feel also left behind. So there's a little bit of some solidarity there. And never before in this country did we ever have a fight between black and white people. Maybe during colonialism, when it was literally fights. But during my time, when I was in the struggle, I never saw white people as my enemy. My comrades were black and white. But these charlatans that have stolen from us now are saying every white person is your enemy and every black person is your friend, including the one who has stolen from you. So what's our defense from them is solidarity, not just in defending democracy against corruption, but solidarity in also defending democracy against social injustice. Thank you.
Anyone else with a question? There's a question here right in front.
So, testing. Can you?
It works.
My question is, Thembalethu, you are currently 21, and like many of us at 21, we didn't accomplish anything as great as publishing a book. So I want to ask you, unfortunately this is a question against you, not against you, just one you have to answer. What was your catalyst for doing something that's great? Like, I know a lot of us have a thought of, we want to do something, but you actually did that thought now. So how did you do that?
Thanks for that beautiful question. And when one gets the book, you see in my introduction, I write about how I was inspired by my mentor, Haneli Boyens, who's sitting right over here. She's been writing a list of lessons, very witty and very funny, but also with life wisdom in it. So I knew 21 was coming, and she's been pressuring me about this. So I was going to write, and we were going to get a slot at News 24 to publish my list of things that I've learned. But because I can be lazy sometimes, so I thought, why not get people to do it for me? But on a serious note, the pandemic was very hard on all of us, and Natasha needed to graduate. So at some point, we needed to raise funds for Natasha to graduate. And at Stellenbosch, we've got this thing of using your network as your net worth. So I started thinking, and I called people like Susan, Prof. Tuli, and I said, I have this idea, and they're all on board. And that's why I wanted to do it, to raise funds, but also to use my network as my net worth.
Well done.
I've actually never heard that one before. Your network as your net worth.
Yes.
Act like that. Act like it. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Natasha, I don't think she's here yet, but Natasha is a very good friend of mine. We've been together in high school since grade 9. I moved from Port Elizabeth, and she's been a very good friend of mine, supporting me and helping me. Because when you move from the Eastern Cape, you're not so good in English, are you? So, so she helped me, and as a foreigner herself, she knew how unwelcoming the system can be. So she walked with me through that high school journey. So we've been very good friends for a long time, and when she needed help, I thought, if I can, let me do so. So that is Natasha. And the other good cause that the funds of the book go to is Action for Inclusion, which is pioneered by Prof. Thuli Madonsela at Social Justice Chair at Stellenbosch, which is also about using your network as your net worth. So we get people and we hike, and we get people, civil society, to pay a little bit of money to ending student debt. So that's Action for Inclusion. So those are the two main causes that you would be supporting when you buy the book.
Any more questions?
Any more questions? I've got one. Prof. Madonsela, I want to read this to you, and because I don't want to get it wrong. Justice Edwin Cameron writes in the book that I appreciate the argument that To remedy social injustice, charity is no substitute for political action. In the abstract, this is undeniable, but there is no reason why charity cannot exist alongside political action. Indeed, unless social justice can be realized instantaneously, and we know sadly that it cannot, benefaction now is an imperative as political change in due course. Do you agree with that? And what are your thoughts on what I've just read?
I agree with Justice Cameron 100%. For example, at a political level, you as young people have been engaging with government on fees must fall and saying the Freedom Charter says there shall be education for all. Section 29 of the Constitution gives everyone the right to education, including higher education, although it's a qualified right. So that's an engagement at a political level. But it takes time for the needle to move at a political level. Charity is like the story we hear about a boy who is throwing starfish back into the sea, and somebody came and said, what's the use? They're going to beach themselves. And the boy took one starfish, threw it as far as he could, and said, I've made a difference to that one. And what you say, I've pioneered action for inclusion. Well, the idea came at a discussion between Professor Sonia Human, who's my colleague, and I, whilst we were climbing with Richard Mabaso on Trek for Mandela, planning to summit Kilimanjaro, which we eventually did. So there's a whole lot of people that were involved in it. And then we discussed with you, Themba is sort of the de facto chief ambassador of chief social justice ambassador. We discussed it with Themba colleagues and Hlonelwa here and others. And the idea would never have taken off ground if the students didn't take it and own it. And it has reached, and actually this year, through student activism, the debt was written off for all of the students in Action for Inclusion for this year. So they say it takes a village to raise a child, but it takes a village to achieve anything that is worthy. And so he's right. That's why we have the M plan for social justice. Whilst we're fixing the political system, me, you, and everyone else can make a difference. And I see people making a difference every day. Your mom passed on when you were 13. Your little sister, who was barely a child herself, raised you. And charity does make a difference. That's why we do all of these things.
Another question. I'm told we've got 5 minutes left. There's a question.
Yes, thank you very much. I've really enjoyed this so much. What I'd like the panel, and it's not directed at anyone in particular, but to think forward 27 years. And what are the kinds of things we might be talking about? And what are the things that we might not be talking about now that we should be talking about? Think forward 27 years and just reflect on that. Thank you.
I'll give all the panel members a chance to answer that. Let's start with Susan.
Yes, I would like to see more bridges and far fewer walls. And just less division. And we are going to, with the state of the world and the earth, as Sandra mentioned, realize that we've seen now with COVID. Johanna van Eden, a colleague of mine, wrote beautifully this past week about India, where people don't have oxygen. They're dying for lack of oxygen, but NASA is making oxygen on Mars. What is the worth? What does it help if we can make oxygen on Mars, but people are dying for lack of oxygen in India? I think hopefully in 27 years, we will realize that dividing the world in smaller and smaller groups and putting up higher and higher walls and barriers, and not only between countries, but between people and genders and religions, hopefully in 27 years, we'll realize that if we want to survive, we'll have to do it as a people. There's only one race, there's only the human race. There really are no races, there are different ethnicities, but we are only all the same race. And our destiny is absolutely intertwined, and I hope in 27 years we'll realize that more than we do now.
Thank you.
Yes.
V?
For me, in 27 years, I would like to see alleviation in poverty. Our people are poor. It's just heartbreaking. I would love to see an equal society in terms of poverty levels. Yeah.
Amazing. I've never thought about 27 years, but what a beautiful idea. And I hope we literally do take your idea and make it a snowball, a rolling kind of action. We've been thinking at Stellenbosch University and the Thuma Foundation about 10 years from now because of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And we have something that we refer to as the Musa Plan for Social Justice. And it is about ending poverty by 2030 because that's what the UN has asked us to do. And poverty can be ended by 2030. But with inequality, which the UN says we must end, we've only said we must make a huge dent on structural inequality. And just thinking aloud, because I must be honest, I haven't reflected on 27 years of, but it would be amazing if we honestly could put 27 years into democracy as our second moonshot. We have a moonshot, which is 2030, and a moonshot into 27 years. And probably even just write a little, what do they call it, a capsule, and put those dreams. What do we want to see in 27 years, and what are we going to do to bring it about? What I do hope, just in line with what my colleagues have said, in 27 years, there shouldn't be a single community where there is no library. Prof. Jonathan Jansen has just given us statistics. I wanted to cry because I grew up with a library where I was because my church made sure that we had a library. And there are children who are supposed to compete on an equal footing, but there are no libraries. There are no labs, laboratories. The first time they're going to see a lab is when they come to university. But an Einstein equivalent could be hiding in these communities, and we'll never discover that genius purely because of the structural inequality that we've put there. But also I'm hoping that in 27 years' time, we will stop having racial categories. Maybe ethnicity might not even matter, but we will come to a place where Martin Luther King said he was dreaming, he had a dream of a society where everyone would be judged by the content of their character as opposed to the color of their skin. And we can't reach that artificially, though, whilst poverty still has a black female face. Do you know that as we're sitting in this room, 1 in 100 white people are poor? 1 to 100. Among those who are African, of African descent, 2 out of 3 are poor. So that's a reality that we can't run away from, and me, you, and everyone else can do something about it.
Miss Sandra, 27 years from now, what would you like to see?
One woman show.
I haven't really thought about it because I probably won't be alive, but by then. But I think in line with what everybody else has said, I think I would love to look at a world where the healing has happened, where healing has happened through whichever channels we follow. Because I believe also in that thing, if you do not heal yourself, what you said, Prof. Maransela said, if you don't heal yourself, you cannot heal anything. You cannot heal the world. So I think for me it would be, and how do we heal? For me, I would say respect is an important ingredient of healing, of looking at each other, of respecting each other, making space for each other, giving time to each other, and in the same way respecting the earth, respecting our environment, respecting all those things. I mean, somebody was talking on the radio again this morning saying, as the 28th biggest country, we are the biggest coal producer. Why do we need to take out all this coal and then sell it to other places and pollute the earth? There doesn't seem to be any sense in all of this. Stop hurting the environment because we're hurting ourselves, and that would be my wish.
Right, my producers are already speaking in my ears and telling me we've ran out of time. But just concluding remarks from the panelists, and once again, thank you for being so gracious with your time and being part of 21 Life Lessons at 21. And before I do the formal gratitude at the end, I'd like some concluding remarks from V, and we'll go this way. And I know Ms. Sandra will tell us a little bit about her show that she will also be featuring in at the Suidooster. One sentence, concluding remarks.
Okay, one sentence. Basically, I'm really honored and privileged that I've shared my Freedom Day with you in this venue today. May we continue supporting causes like this and building South Africa one brick at a time. Thank you.
Themba, I want to say to you, congratulations. I think you've done a marvelous thing, and I wish you a lot of luck for the future. And maybe I want to just say, as is said in a very lovely book, which I'm sure you've all read, The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. I don't know if you've ever read it. It's the most extraordinary book. But in it, it is, instead of asking or worrying about how far we've got to go, perhaps we should look at how far we've come. And then we can build on what we've done. Because we haven't done nothing. We have actually done something in this country.
And please tell us a little bit about your show that you...
I'm doing a show called Spertijd, based on Elsa Hubert's book called Spertijd as well. It's she was a marvelous writer, one of our most extraordinary writers, and it really is a very gentle journey into discovering. The subtitle is a journey through the continent of old age, and starts, and we walk a path with her, where at first she fights very much against old age, but comes to a point where she accepts old age and understands death and understands just the whole process of how it's not something that's happening over there, it's something that's happening here, and it's part of life. And so that's basically what it's about. But it's such a beautifully written book. I could recommend anyone to read it. And yes, please come and see the show if we have an extra one.
Susan would like to have your concluding remarks. And
Yes, Themba, as I say in my little contribution in the book, maybe we should all consider making our motto, and you might consider this too, that we can weigh everything in our lives against the following three words: fair, kind, true. Maybe that's all we need, is whatever we do, fair, kind, or true. Themba, congratulations. And I'm just reminding everyone while I've got the mic, these books will be sold, and Prof. Thule has agreed to graciously sign the book for those of you who would like to buy a book. It will be at the table over there once we've concluded our session. Thanks, Themba. Sandra's already signed a lot of books.
Just because I've got to run to rehearsal.
Last word to Prof. Thule.
Prof. Marantela, I was the chair today, and in our mafia style at Stellenbosch, I give you the privilege to conclude this proceeding for us, and I vest those powers in you.
That's super kind, Themba. I think what we've witnessed through the project that Thembalethu Seyisi undertook is the truth that you shouldn't do nothing to improve the world just because you're worried that what you can do is too little. This project has made more than one difference. It certainly will generate money towards helping Natasha. It will generate money to help students that could have been excluded from university because of student debt. But in addition to that, it has brought these remarkable people together and these remarkable people together. One of the things I say in the book is each little star is stronger than darkness. But when stars come together to form a galaxy of stars, they're formidable against darkness. And for this country to get better in the next 27 years, but starting with the next day, the next week, the next year, and the next 10 years, we all will have to continue, make a difference wherever we can, in whatever way we can. But more than anything else, also, like Ethiopians say, when spider webs combine, they can even tie up a lion. So let's tie up the lion, that is division, that is poverty, that is inequality, that is corruption, that is everything that stands between us and the country we dreamt of 27 years ago.